Sometimes when we're stuck on a technical problem, what's happening is we're finding solutions that are real close to the problem in solution space. What we need really is a radical solution or a creative solution to our problem. Something that moves from close to your problem, like tweaking a fan here or changing a power supply, all the way to something else in solution space, something radically different. Well, in order to do this, we have to get ourselves into a creative mindset. And I'm going to show you a trick here that I use. Actually, it might be called 3 tricks, because there's 3 different techniques I use. What I have to do is get myself into a space where I'm having fun. Sometimes the harder I work, the more counterproductive everything becomes. What I really need to do is relax and get my mind into a totally different space. Now, in order to do that, what I do, something that works for me, is that I remind myself of why I got into technical work and engineering in the first place. This creates a sense of fun in what I'm doing. When you need a creative solution, what you really need is to be having fun. Now, in order to get into this space, I have 3 tricks. I do 3 things that remind myself of the joy that's involved in engineering and why I love it. The first thing I do is think about the social aspects of engineering. Let's face it, the community we work with, the technical people, it's a special brand of people. We have a language of our own, and we communicate and we understand each other. This point was driven home to me a few weeks ago. I do work around my home, and I like to listen to music on a MP3 iPod kind of player. Well, there's 2 problems with that. Number 1, I get the cables tangled in my work, and I eventually end up yanking the earbuds out of my ear. They're really, they get broken pretty quickly. The second thing is that I work on things that are kind of loud sometimes, mowing the lawn, string trimming, and I can't really hear the music and the lectures that I like to listen to. So I came up with this idea. I have this pair of hearing protectors that I sometimes wear. They're made by 3M. They're very common. You can get them at Home Depot. And they really work well. They give you at least 22 decibels of noise attenuation. Well, I thought, why don't they make headphones that are this quiet? So what I did was I mounted some loudspeakers in the ear cups, and I ran the cables up the top, and I mounted my MP3 player on the top, glued the thing together with silicone rubber, and it worked like a champ. I was outside mowing the lawn. I was even using the leaf blower, which is the loudest thing I do, and I could hear very clearly, and I was just having a blast. So I come into my house, and my family sees me, and the first thing out of their mouth is, "You look like such a dork." Well, this is probably true. I mean, I didn't even think about what I looked like. I was so proud of myself for building this working music player that mounted on my head. But my point is this. The average person doesn't get something like that. But if I was with my community of engineers, my posse, they'd probably think I looked like a dork too. But they would at least see the beauty in this. They may not condone my fashion statement, but they would understand. And that's the important thing. We understand and appreciate something that really solves the problem. Now, another thing I remind myself about is the power that's involved in engineering. After all, engineering has transformed the world. It's engineers that built this place. We built machines that do our heavy work for us. And this point was driven home to me when I was quite young. I lived in a pretty dumpy apartment near Penn State University when I was going to school. And I didn't like washing dishes. None of the guys I lived with did. And we let the dishes stack up. I became a master at making elaborate meals all in one pot. I'd throw everything in the right time sequence, and I'd even eat out of the pot. So all I ever dirtied was one fork and one pot. Well, I moved to Ohio and had a job and got a fairly decent place, and it had a dishwasher. Now, the first time I loaded up this dishwasher, I put in the dishes, shut the detergent door, shut the dishwasher door, ran it, and I sat there and I watched this dishwasher. I mean, I watched it for like a half hour. It was like watching a good movie. And after a while, I started asking myself, what the heck am I doing? Why am I sitting here watching this dishwasher? And I discovered what it did for me is it reminded me in microcosm what technology has done for the world. We have machines doing all kinds of work that we just do not want to do, heavy work that we couldn't even do. Some 200 years ago, 60% of our population was involved in agriculture. Now it's like 2%. This has freed us up to do all kinds of creative work and build all kinds of wonderful things and just have a spectacular lifestyle that our ancestors couldn't even imagine. And it's all due to engineering, and there's a power in that. And that's what I got out of that episode, and I remind myself of this, how powerful. Oh, and this machine even had a brain in it. I mean, it wasn't much of a brain. It was a little mechanical timer that was going around that timed when the water came in and when the detergent dumped. But I didn't have to think about it. The machine took care of it. And this represented for me what the technology age, the information age is all about. We now have machines doing our thinking for us. I mean, the stupid thinking that we don't want to have to do. It does all this calculation. Well, what a wonderful world we live in, and how powerful this technology is. Now, the last thing I remind myself about is how curious I can be. I don't know a single engineer or technologist that I work with who doesn't have an undying curiosity. We just want to know and understand things. I'm the kind of person who's watched every episode of The Masked Magician. Does anybody remember The Masked Magician? He was he would come on the TV on one of those off channels on cable, and he'd show you a magic trick. And then he'd cut to commercial, and he'd come back, and he'd show you how the trick was done. He'd expose the trick. And it was just wonderful. I'd sit there during the commercial thinking about it myself, and he'd come back on, and it didn't matter if I was right or wrong. It was just wonderful to see the solution. I did get a kick out of being right. The legend in this show was that he wore a mask because if other magicians knew who he was and knew he was revealing tricks, his life would be in jeopardy. So this kind of thing is wonderful for me. I love a good puzzle. I love to figure things out. I love when my engineering colleagues has figured something out, and I see a wonderful solution to a problem or a machine that was designed that really does the trick, and I look at it and study it and see how it works and how the problem was solved. Well, these are three things that work for me. They lift my spirits, and they get me into a creative space where I can do my technical work and come up with creative solutions. Anyway, give it a try. See if any of that works for you. I'd like hearing from you, too, to see if you have any other ideas that do this for you. Thanks for listening, and check out some of the other videos on innovation and creative thinking.